When I found out Ethan was cheating, he didn't panic or deny it. We discussed it and amicably agreed to divorce. But on the way to the courthouse to finalize our divorce, I couldn't help but ask him, why? Why were you so insistent on keeping our marital home? Ethan said nonchalantly, Chloe was jealous. She insisted on personally destroying any trace of my time with another woman before she'd feel better. He shook his head, a fond, amused tone in his voice, such a childish girl. I froze for a few seconds. Staring at his profile, joyful at the prospect of divorcing me, I swung my bag, hitting him hard enough to make his nose bleed profusely. I stared at the new message that had just popped up on my phone screen, my finger hovering in the air, hesitant to open it. Babe, meet me at our usual spot tonight. The sender was Mr. Ethan, my husband Ethan. But this message clearly wasn't meant for me. The day before our 5th wedding anniversary, I came home early after finishing a design project ahead of schedule, intending to surprise Ethan. Instead, I found this surprise on his secondary phone. I took a deep breath and swiped open the screen. The password was still our wedding anniversary. How ironic. Then I tapped into WhatsApp. The pinned chat was with someone named Chloe, whose profile picture was a young girl's profile. Reading their chat history, my stomach began to cramp. My fingers trembled uncontrollably, yet I calmly took photos of the conversations and the explicit pictures, sending them all to my email. Then I put down the phone, walked into the kitchen, and poured myself a glass of red wine. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, the setting sun painted the entire city in shades of crimson. I stood by the window, watching the dark red light reflected by the wine in my glass, and suddenly found it all amusing. I, Grace, a moderately well-known interior designer in the industry, had discovered I was being cheated on the very day of my wedding anniversary. The sound of the door lock turning pulled me back to reality. I put down my wine glass, picked up the secondary phone, and walked to the center of the living room. Grace? Why are you home so early? Ethan pushed the door open, his face still showing the fatigue of work. When he saw the phone in my hand, his expression instantly froze. Whose phone is this? I asked calmly, even though I already knew the answer. Ethan's Adam's apple bobbed. He put down his briefcase and loosened his tie, a company-issued secondary phone. Really? Then why does this intern named Chloe call you Mr. Ethan and ask when you're getting a divorce? I opened the most explicit photo and turned the phone screen towards him. Ethan's face turned pale, then flushed red. He opened his mouth, as if to argue, but finally just sighed, since you've seen everything. Everything. I interrupted him. Including how you plan to divide our house. A silence fell. I had expected him to defend himself, to beg for forgiveness, to show even a hint of remorse. But he just stood there, his gaze darting around, and then, surprisingly, he smiled. In that case, let's discuss the divorce, he said, his tone as casual as if he were discussing what to have for dinner. I clenched my fists, my nails digging deep into my palms. The pain kept me clear-headed. Fine, let's talk. We sat at opposite ends of the living room, like two negotiating business partners, not a couple about to divorce. The house goes to me, other assets can be split equally, Ethan stated up front. I sneered, why should it? My parents paid the down payment on the house, he shrugged. What about you and the other woman? She won't mind living in the marital home you shared with your ex-wife? I shot back, sharply. Ethan frowned, Chloe isn't like that. Then what kind of person is she? The kind who sleeps with someone knowing they have family commitments? My voice started to tremble. Our relationship has been troubled for a long time. Grace, Ethan suddenly raised his voice. You're always working. How long has it been since we had a real conversation? Chloe genuinely loves me, and I genuinely love her. She understands me, she cares about me. So, cheating is my fault? I could barely believe my ears. Ethan, you disgust me. The negotiation dragged on into the night. Eventually, we reached an agreement. The house would go to him, but he would compensate me for half its market value. I would take 70% of the other assets, including our savings and my design studio. The car would be mine. After signing the draft divorce agreement, Ethan visibly relaxed, even managing a small smile. Thank you for being so rational, Grace. I thought you would. What? Make a scene? Cry and shout? I collected my copy of the agreement. It's not worth it. He nodded, getting up to leave the living room. So, tomorrow morning we'll go to the courthouse? See you tomorrow. I didn't look at him, listening as his footsteps faded, followed by the sound of the bedroom door closing. I sat there, watching the moonlight outside the window, and suddenly realized, he hadn't even said I'm sorry. My phone vibrated. It was a message from my best friend, Sarah, happy. Dinner tomorrow night to celebrate? I stared at the message for a long time, then replied, noon tomorrow. I need you to come with me to the courthouse. Ethan cheated, and we're getting a divorce. Almost immediately, Sarah called. That jerk, she swore the moment she picked up. When did this happen? An intern from his company, named Chloe, I answered robotically, my voice strangely calm. Very young, very beautiful. I knew it. Sarah gnashed her teeth. At the company holiday party last time, I thought the way she looked at Ethan was off. Just wait, I'll find someone to dig into her background tomorrow. No need, I said. It's over. Grace. Sarah's voice suddenly softened. Are you okay? I looked towards the bedroom, where the man I had loved for 7 years lay, and now all I wanted was to see him pay the price. I'll be fine, I said softly. Better than either of them. After hanging up, I opened my laptop and started organizing all the evidence I could gather. Screenshots, recordings, photos. Everything needed to be backed up. I worked expressionlessly, with only one thought in my mind. Ethan wanted a peaceful divorce? Fine. But he and Chloe would have to pay for it. The morning sun pierced through the gap in the curtains, stinging my eyes. I blinked, realizing I had fallen asleep on the sofa, my laptop still on, its screen now locked. The sound of water came from the bathroom. Ethan was already up, preparing for our divorce. I sat up, rubbing my stiff neck. The divorce agreement lay neatly on the coffee table, beside 2 cold cups of tea. Everything from last night felt like a nightmare, but the soreness in my neck and a persistent dull ache in my chest reminded me it was all real. The water stopped. I quickly closed my laptop, grabbed the clothes I had prepared, and went into the guest bathroom. The woman in the mirror had red, swollen eyes and a pale complexion. I turned on the faucet, splashed cold water on my face, then applied heavier makeup than usual to conceal my exhaustion. When I emerged from the bathroom, Ethan was already dressed and sitting at the dining table, with 2 cups of coffee in front of him. He pushed one towards me. Thanks, I said, not touching the coffee. He pursed his lips, his gaze shifting. I've called a car, it'll be here in half an hour. Silence hung between us like an invisible wall. 7 years ago, on our first date, we sat in a coffee shop like this, silent then out of shyness. Now, it was because there was nothing left to say. Ethan's phone vibrated. He glanced at it, a faint smile unconsciously tugging at the corner of his mouth, then quickly locked the screen. But it was too late. I saw the notification pop up on the lock screen, a heart emoji from Chloe darling. My nails dug into my palm again. He couldn't even wait a single day. He was already impatient to flirt with the other woman before our divorce was even finalized. Let's go. I stood up, grabbing my bag and folder. The early summer sun beat down on us relentlessly. The private car Ethan had called was waiting downstairs. After the driver helped us with our luggage, the car once again descended into that suffocating silence. Ethan kept his head down, looking at his phone, his fingers typing furiously, a smile occasionally appearing on his face. I knew who he was chatting with. I turned to look out the window, the streetscape rushing by, just like our 7 years together, forgotten in an instant. Why were you so insistent on keeping our marital home? The question slipped out, surprising even myself. I had intended to remain silent until the very end, but this doubt had been gnawing at my mind since last night. Ethan looked up, seemingly surprised I had spoken. He thought for a few seconds, then offered a relaxed smile. Oh, that, he said, his tone as casual as if discussing the weather. Chloe was jealous. She insisted on personally destroying any trace of my time with another woman before she'd feel better. He shook his head, a fond, amused tone in his voice, such a childish girl. His words felt like a red-hot knife twisting in my heart. I stared wide-eyed at his profile, joyful at the prospect of divorcing me, at the tenderness in his eyes when he mentioned Chloe, at the happy smile playing on his lips. In an instant, my bag slammed hard into Ethan's face, the metal clasp cutting a gash across his nose. Blood gushed out immediately, dripping onto his white shirt like a string of ugly red pearls. Are you crazy? Ethan clutched his nose, staring at me in shock. The driver slammed on the brakes, nearly causing a rear-end collision. What's going on? Do we need to go to the hospital? He asked, turning back in a panic. No. Keep driving. Ethan roared, then turned to me, his eyes blazing with fury. Grace, are you insane? Am I insane? My voice trembled violently, yet it was surprisingly loud. She wants to tear my home apart to feel better, and you're indulging her? Ethan, we were together for 7 years. Is this how you treat our past? We're over. Ethan stuffed tissues into his bleeding nose, his voice distorted with rage. Look at you now, you're like a shrew. No wonder I fell for Chloe. His words completely ignited my fury. I raised my bag again, but the driver intervened just in time. Folks, maybe you should settle this outside? I still have to work. Ethan glared at me viciously, then told the driver, keep driving, we're fine. For the rest of the ride, we sat pressed against our respective doors, as if the other carried a plague. Ethan's nose had stopped bleeding, but the bloodstains on his white shirt were glaring. I clenched my fists, my nails leaving deep crescent-shaped marks in my palms. The procedures at the courthouse were simpler than I expected. Submitting documents, signing, stamping. In less than half an hour, our marriage certificate turned into a divorce certificate. Walking out of the courthouse, the sun was still brilliant, as if mocking my pain. Ethan hailed a taxi, giving me one last look before getting in. I hope you find happiness, he said, with not a trace of sincerity in his voice. I didn't reply, just stood there, watching the taxi carry away 7 years of my marriage as it vanished around the street corner. Grace! A familiar voice made me turn around. Sarah, in a striking red dress, strode towards me. She threw her arms around me, her strong perfume enveloping me. I'm late, that damn meeting dragged on forever, she said, releasing me and scrutinizing my face. Are you okay? I publicly broke his nose with my bag, I said, my voice so calm it felt unfamiliar even to me. Sarah's eyes widened, then she burst out laughing. Well done. Tell me everything. She led me into a nearby coffee shop and ordered 2 Irish coffees with whiskey. Under the influence of the alcohol, I told her everything that had happened last night and today. That be ****H. Sarah gnashed her teeth. Wait, you said her name was Chloe? I nodded, an intern from Ethan's company, hired through campus recruitment last year. Sarah's expression suddenly turned strange. She pulled out her phone, swiped quickly a few times, then handed it to me. Is this her? On the screen was a social media account, with the familiar profile picture. I nodded, that's her. It's a small world, Sarah sneered. My cousin works in a different department at the same company as her. Apparently, this Chloe is quite something. She's juggling several men at once, including their company's vice Marcus. I frowned. What do you mean? It means your ex-husband might just be one fish in her pond. Sarah leaned closer, lowering her voice. According to my cousin, Chloe specifically targets men with family commitments, especially those with a bit of power. After sleeping with them, she blackmails them, demanding either money or career advancement. I gripped my coffee cup, the heat burning through the ceramic into my palm. Ethan is just a design director. What could he give her? The house, of course. Sarah rolled her eyes. Didn't you just say Ethan was so insistent on keeping the house? I bet that ****H wanted to take over your house, then make Ethan add her name to the title. This possibility hit me like a splash of cold water. I suddenly understood why Ethan had been so adamant about the house, not because of his parents' down payment, but because of Chloe's demands. What's the situation with Vice Marcus? I asked. He's in his 50s, married with children, and handles the finances, Sarah scoffed. Apparently, Chloe was with him even before Ethan. Ethan had no idea he was just the other man in her other affair. The alcohol from the Irish coffee began to take effect, a warm flush spreading from my stomach through my whole body. I put down my cup and made a decision. Sarah, do me a favor. I need to know everything about Chloe, especially evidence of her dealings with that vice. Sarah raised an eyebrow. Planning revenge? What do you think? I revealed my first smile since the divorce, cold and sharp. Sarah smiled too, raising her coffee cup to clink with mine. To revenge. My cousin has been annoyed with Chloe for ages. She'll be happy to help. Leaving the coffee shop, the sun was still dazzling, but I no longer felt it was mocking me. Instead, it was like a spotlight, illuminating the path ahead. Ethan thought the divorce was the end, but for me, it was just the beginning. Ms. Grace, these are the results of our week-long investigation. The man opposite me pushed a manila envelope across the table. He introduced himself as detective, a private investigator Sarah had recommended, in his early 40s, with a face so unremarkable he'd disappear in a crowd, perfect for the job. I took the envelope, my fingers trembling slightly. The corner booth of the cafe offered us enough privacy. I broke the seal and pulled out the photos, Chloe and a bald man in his 50s emerging from an upscale hotel, the man's arm around her waist, her smiling like a cat who'd caught a bird. Vice Marcus? I recognized the man in the photo. Detective nodded. Marcus, current vice of finance at Evergreen. According to our surveillance, Chloe visits his suburban villa every Wednesday and Friday afternoon, usually staying for 3 to 4 hours. I continued flipping through the photos, each one like a knife carving into my heart. Chloe with different men, entering and leaving various places, some intimately, others maintaining a subtle distance. But what disgusted me most were a few photos of her and Ethan together. She was nestled in his arms, he was looking down, kissing the top of her head, his gaze blindingly tender. This man, detective said, pointing to F. And in the photo, is one of her main targets. But according to our investigation, she's simultaneously involved with at least 4 people, including Vice Marcus. Do you have concrete proof? My voice was surprisingly calm. Detective took a USB drive from his bag. It contains audio and video recordings. She's very careless and often discusses these matters in public. I put away the photos and USB drive, then took a thick envelope from my bag and pushed it towards him. Continue surveillance, especially on her and Vice Marcus. I need more evidence. Understood. He took the envelope, got up, and disappeared into the cafe crowd like a drop of water merging with the ocean. Back home, I locked the door, drew the curtains, and inserted the USB drive into my computer. It contained several audio files and a video. I clicked on the first audio file. Marcus promised to buy me that new LV bag, Chloe's voice said, a boastful tone. His wife keeps a tight leash on him, so he doesn't have much spending money, but a few bags are certainly within his means. Be careful not to overplay your hand, an unfamiliar female voice responded. What's there to be afraid of? I know what I'm doing. Ethan's house will be mine soon. Once the transfer is complete, I'll make him add my name to the title. As for Marcus, he's got enough financial irregularities to keep him busy, so he won't dare cross me. I abruptly paused the recording, my heart pounding. Financial irregularities? This was an unexpected bonus. The subsequent recordings were even more explicit. Chloe detailed how she juggled different men and exploited their weaknesses. The final video was in a private karaoke room, with Chloe sitting on Vice Marcus's lap, his hand already reaching under her skirt. I closed my laptop and walked onto the balcony to take a deep breath. The night breeze couldn't disperse the burning sensation in my chest. Ethan betrayed our marriage for a woman like this? He was truly blind. The next morning, I arranged to meet Sarah at a casual cafe near her company. So? Is Hayes reliable? She asked impatiently the moment she sat down. I nodded, handing her a few printed photos. Sarah flipped through them, her expression shifting from curiosity to shock, finally settling on disgust. Oh my god, this B********H is even more repulsive than I thought, she whispered. How are you planning to use these? Send them directly to Ethan? Not entirely, I said, taking a sip of iced tea. I'm going to give him a little taste first. 3 days later, Ethan received an anonymous email containing only one photo, Chloe and Vice Marcus kissing at a hotel entrance, dated last Friday, the same day Ethan had texted her saying I miss you. Through Hayes's channels, I learned that after receiving the email, Ethan rushed to Chloe's apartment, and they had a huge fight. But surprisingly, they reconciled. A recording sent by detectives showed Chloe tearfully explaining it was just an accident after a departmental party when Vice Marcus had too much to drink. And Ethan, my former husband, the man who once gave me the cold shoulder for a week because I worked late and forgot our anniversary, actually forgave her. Birds of a feather flock together, Sarah commented on the phone. But I wasn't disheartened. On the contrary, this played right into my hands. Ethan's easy forgiveness showed he was deeply infatuated, and this would only make the subsequent blow more painful. As my plan moved to its second phase, I unexpectedly ran into Michael. He was a former colleague of mine who had later moved to a competitor of Evergreen. We met by chance at a design exhibition, and after a brief chat, he mentioned Evergreen. I heard they have internal financial issues, and they've been quietly auditing recently, Michael said casually. Our company even poached 2 of their key employees. My heart skipped a beat. Financial issues? What specifically? Michael shrugged, not entirely sure, something about problematic fund flow for a certain project. Why? Nothing, just curious. I changed the subject. By the way, do you know Marcus? The president of finance at Evergreen. Marcus? Michael gave me a strange look. I know him, but not well. He doesn't have a great reputation. Apparently, he likes young female subordinates. He lowered his voice. Last year, an intern even attempted suicide because of him, and the company paid to cover it up. This news struck me like lightning. Did know about this? Did she genuinely like Vice Marcus, or was she exploiting this? Back home, I immediately contacted Detective, asking him to focus his investigation on Vice Marcus and that in turn. At the same time, I began organizing all the information I had on Evergreen. I had designed several sales offices for them over the past few years and knew some of their mid to senior management. Just as my investigation was gaining momentum, Sarah called with an urgent update. "Grace, something's happened. My cousin said Chloe threw a fit in the office today, claiming someone was following her and digging into her background." Sarah spoke rapidly. "She suspects Ethan's ex-wife is behind it and is threatening revenge." I gripped my phone. "How did she find out?" "Not sure, but my cousin said Chloe is now on edge, has set all her social media profiles to private, and suddenly took 3 days off." Sarah paused. "Even stranger, she started urging Ethan to speed up the property transfer." I sneered, a guilty conscience. "You need to be careful. This woman is not simple," Sarah said worriedly. "My cousin said Chloe always keeps pepper spray and a taser in her office drawer." After hanging up, I stood by the window, contemplating my next move. Chloe was suspicious, which might accelerate her actions. I needed to strike faster and more aggressively. Just then, the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Michael standing outside, holding a file folder. "Sorry for the sudden visit," he said apologetica. LLY after entering, "But I heard some things today that I think you should know." He opened the file folder. Inside were photocopies of financial documents for a certain Evergreen project. "A friend secretly gave these to me. Vice Marcus's project has serious funding issues. He embezzled at least $2 million to cover personal investment losses." I flipped through the documents, my heart racing. "Is this irrefutable evidence?" "Enough to send him to jail," Michael said seriously. "But what worries me more is that your ex-husband, Ethan, also signed these documents. While not the mastermind, he won't escape culpability." I looked up sharply. "What?" "Ethan is a design director. These project changes required his signature for confirmation," Michael said, pointing to several signatures. "If the audit team finds these, he'll at least be suspended for investigation." My mind raced. This was even better than I'd anticipated. Not only could it strike at Vice Marcus, but it would also make Ethan suffer. But strangely, I didn't feel the joy I'd imagined. "Why are you helping me?" I looked Michael directly in the eye. He sighed. 2 years ago, when my mother was hospitalized, you were the only colleague who came to visit. I remember everyone who's been kind to me. After left, I reevaluated my plan. Now, with evidence of financial irregularities and proof of Chloe's multiple relationships, I could strike at both Ethan and his new lover. But I had to proceed cautiously, ensuring the attack was precise and didn't harm anyone undeserving. On my laptop screen, I opened a new folder and named it Judgment. It already contained plenty of evidence, but one crucial piece was still missing. Was Chloe aware of all this? Was she simply a gold digger, or an accomplice to Vice Marcus? My phone vibrated. It was a text message from Detective. "Urgent. Target has scheduled separate meetings tonight with Vice Marcus and Ethan. Same location, staggered times. Suspect a change in plans." I lied. "Continue surveillance, make sure to get recordings." As night fell, I sat in front of my computer, waiting for news from Detective. Outside, lightning flashed and thunder roared, and torrential rain poured down, as if the heavens themselves were brewing the impending storm. On the day Evergreen annual audit began, a strange tension permeated the entire company. I received real-time updates from Detective, as if watching a play I had directed myself. "Vice Marcus has been called into a meeting room and hasn't come out for 2 hours. Detective's text popped up, accompanied by a blurry candid photo. I put down my phone and opened another folder on my laptop. Inside were the whistleblower materials I had meticulously prepared, evidence of Vice Marcus's embezzlement, problematic documents signed by Ethan, and photos of Chloe's inappropriate relationship with Vice Marcus. All materials had been processed, their origins erased, and sent via virtual numbers to Evergreen Audit Team and Disciplinary Committee. Around noon, Sarah called, her voice trembling with barely suppressed excitement. "Grace. Big news. Vice Marcus was taken away. The company is buzzing with rumors that he was caught red-handed for corruption." "What about Ethan?" I asked, my fingers unconsciously tapping the table. "He was also called in for questioning. Apparently, those design change documents he signed have issues," Sarah whispered. "Serves him right. Let him suffer for being blinded by lust." After hanging up the phone, I stood by the window, gazing at the bright sunshine outside. 7 months ago, on a similar clear day, I had discovered evidence of Ethan's infidelity. Now, it was finally time for him to pay the price. At 3 p.m., detective sent an update, Ethan suspended for investigation, personal belongings in his office seized. I replied, continue monitoring his and Chloe's reactions. The thrill of revenge came more slowly than I'd imagined. I thought I would be cheering, but in really, I just sat quietly on the sofa, feeling a cold satisfaction. This wasn't the end, it was just the beginning. As evening fell, my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Ethan standing outside, his face ashen, eyes hollow, looking 10 years older. I took a deep breath and opened the door. Can I help you? I asked, maintaining a safe distance, my voice calm. Ethan's lips trembled. Did you do something? I don't know what you mean, I said, leaning against the doorframe, arms crossed. Stop pretending, he suddenly raised his voice. Some of those materials the audit team has, only insiders could get their hands on. You reported it, didn't you? I tilted my head slightly. If it were me, would you blame me? After all, you were the one who betrayed our marriage first. Ethan's expression twisted, then crumbled. Grace, I was wrong. I truly made a mistake. Chloe. She's not at all the person I thought she was. His voice caught. The audit team showed me a video, her and Vice Marcus. They've been sleeping together? I finished for him, sneering. How surprising, a woman who cheats with married men also cheats with other men. Ethan looked up abruptly, his eyes bloodshot. You knew all along? I didn't answer, just watched him silently. This man who once made my heart race now looked utterly pathetic. Why didn't you say anything? He demanded. Why did you just stand by and watch me get deceived? Just like you stood by and watched me get deceived. I retorted. Ethan, you deserved it. His face instantly turned ashen, and he took a step back. You've changed. Yes, I have, I said softly. Thanks to you and Chloe. As turned to leave, his shoulders slumped like an old man's. I closed the door, leaned against it, and slowly slid to the floor, finally allowing myself a small smile. The next day, the second phase of my revenge plan began. I logged into a newly registered anonymous account and sent evidence of Chloe's fabricated academic credentials to Eve. Green HR department, also CCING several industry media outlets. Chloe's resume claimed she graduated from a top-tier university's architecture program, but in reality, it was a community college diploma from an adult education program. This information was provided by Sarah's cousin and confirmed by detective as irrefutable. The effect was immediate. That afternoon, Chloe was called in for a meeting by the company, then promptly fired on the spot. Photos sent by detectives showed her escorted out of the company building by security, her face ashen, her lips almost bitten raw. Beautiful. Sarah cheered on the phone. That B*******H has nothing left. Not enough, I said. She still has Ethan. Huh. Sarah scoffed. According to my cousin, Ethan hasn't answered her calls for 2 days, ever since he found out she was seeing Vice Marcus at the same time. I hung up and pondered my next move. Now that Chloe had lost her job and her connections, knowing her personality, she would surely cling to Ethan. And, in the midst of a career crisis and emotional setback, was at his most vulnerable. I needed to add more fuel to the fire. 3 days later, Ethan received a video. In it, Chloe and Vice Marcus were intimately embracing in bed, and she was giggling, saying, Ethan? He's just a fool. He signed a few documents and transferred the house to me. Once I get the money, who needs him? This conversation had been artificially generated by detective using special techniques, but it was indistinguishable from the real thing. Crucially, the video was sent on the very day Ethan was officially suspended by the company. The effect was even better than I had anticipated. That evening, Ethan and Chloe had a public shouting match at a restaurant they frequently visited. Detective was at the next table, recording the entire incident. You used me. Ethan's voice trembled in the recording. You planned this from the very beginning. What about you? Chloe shrieked back. Didn't you ditch your wife just to sleep with younger girls? Don't play the victim. The *****H. A sharp slap echoed. How dare you hit me? Chloe's scream drew everyone's attention in the restaurant. I'm calling the police. I'm getting a medical report. I'll ruin your reputation. The recording and photos of the scene quickly circulated. Ethan's act of hitting a woman in public was condemned by netizens, while Chloe's manipulative, blackmailing true colors were also exposed. Both their images collapsed simultaneously. Careers, reputations, love, all turned to dust overnight. A perfect conclusion, Sarah said, arriving at my place to celebrate, raising a champagne glass. To the goddess of vengeance. I took a sip of wine and shook my head. Not yet. What else? Sarah asked curiously. The house, I said. The house that should have been half mine. According to the divorce agreement, Ethan was supposed to pay me half the house's value within 3 months, or the house would be forcibly sold. But now, suspended from his job, with his income cut off and his credit damaged, he couldn't possibly come up with that money. A week later, I received a text from Ethan, "Let's talk about the house." We met at a law firm. When I walked into the conference room, I barely recognized him. His eyes were hollow, his face unshaven, his suit wrinkled, and a faint smell of alcohol clung to him. "I can't afford to pay you for your share of the house anymore," he said bluntly, his voice hoarse. "The house. You can have it back." I pretended to think for a moment. "I can agree to have the house transferred back, but on one condition." "What condition?" "You must sign this document," I said, taking a statement from my bag and pushing it across to him. "It acknowledges your infidelity during our marriage and your voluntary relinquishment of all rights to the house." Ethan stared at the document, giving a bitter laugh. "Is it necessary to humiliate me like this?" "It is," I said calmly. "Just as you found it necessary to tell me, on the day of our divorce, Chloe's reason for wanting to personally destroy any trace of our former home." His face twitched, and he finally picked up the pen and signed. As I left the law firm, Ethan called out to me, "Grace." "I'm sorry." I didn't turn around, just waved my hand dismissively. The apology came too late, it held no meaning anymore. Back home, I opened my laptop and deleted the judgment folder. My revenge was complete, it was time to move on. Fate, however, seemed to have one last act in store. Late that night, my phone suddenly rang. It was an unfamiliar number. "Hello?" I answered cautiously. "Is this Grace?" a female voice asked, trembling. "I'm Chloe." I instantly sobered up. "How did you get my number? Please, help me." Her voice was tearful. "Marcus's wife hired someone to beat me up. I'm in the hospital now. Ethan isn't answering my calls. I have nowhere left to go." I was silent for a moment, then I said calmly, "You know who I am, right?" I heard a sob from the other end. "I know. Ethan's ex-wife. But I'm truly desperate." "Then you should also remember," I said slowly, "how you destroyed my marriage, and how you planned to take over my house." "I'm sorry. I truly know I was wrong." She cried even harder. I looked at the night sky outside the window, suddenly feeling a wave of exhaustion. The thrill of revenge had faded, leaving only emptiness. "Listen," I finally said. "I'll get a social worker to help you, but this is the last time we'll speak. Take care of yourself." After hanging up, I deleted the number. Someone had to break the cycle of revenge, and that person was me. The next morning, the sun was still shining brightly. I stood in the house Ethan and I once shared, holding the newly changed keys. This place, filled with memories, now belonged entirely to me. I dialed the renovation company. "Hello, I'd like to schedule a complete home remodel." On the day of the industry summit, I stood backstage, organizing my speech. 6 months ago, I had renovated the house Ethan and I used to own, sold it, and used the proceeds as startup capital to establish my own design studio. I never expected that in just half a year, our innovative design concepts would make us quite well known in the industry, even earning us an invitation to speak at this summit. "Ms. Grace, you're on in 5 minutes, a staff member quietly reminded me. I nodded and took a deep breath. The woman in the mirror wore a sharp white suit, her makeup flawless, her eyes resolute. She was a completely different person from the wife who had broken down at the courthouse 6 months ago. "Please welcome the founder of Joyful Studio, Ms. Grace, as she shares from to rebirth, breakthroughs and innovation in design." To the sound of applause, I walked onto the stage. The lights were a bit dazzling. I squinted slightly at the audience and suddenly spotted a familiar figure in the third row, Ethan. He wore a crumpled suit, with heavy dark circles under his eyes, and was looking down, writing something. The people next to him seemed to be deliberately keeping their distance. My speech began. The industry content I had prepared swirled on my tongue, then transformed into impromptu thoughts from my heart. "Life sometimes deals you unexpected blows," my voice echoed through the hall. "It could be a career setback, or perhaps a betrayal in a relationship." The audience grew quiet. Ethan suddenly looked up, his gaze meeting mine. I calmly shifted my eyes away. 6 months ago, I went through a devastating blow. My marriage, my home, my career, everything seemed to crumble overnight. I smiled faintly. But standing here today, I want to tell everyone that destruction can also be the beginning of rebirth. I clicked the remote control, and the large screen displayed our studio's latest work, a creative space transformed from an abandoned factory. This building was once abandoned, considered worthless. But when we looked at it from a different perspective, those damages and cracks became its most unique design elements. Ethan's face turned pale. He knew what I was talking about. In design, we often encounter seemingly insurmountable problems. At such times, what's needed isn't brute force confrontation, but a shift in mindset, transforming obstacles into opportunities. I paused. Life is the same. The rest of the speech received an unexpectedly enthusiastic response. When it ended, the applause lasted for a long time. I smiled and bowed in thanks, my gaze sweeping the audience, but Ethan was no longer in his seat. At the small reception after the summit, colleagues came one after another to congratulate me. I was speaking with a potential client when I caught a glimpse of Ethan in the corner, holding a business card, seeming to want to approach but hesitating. "Please excuse me," I told the client with a smile. I walked purposefully towards that corner. Ethan visibly tensed as he saw me approach. He was thinner than when I last saw him, his suit hanging loosely on his shoulders, his tie askew. "That was a brilliant speech," he murmured. His eyes wouldn't meet mine. "Thank you," I said, taking a glass of champagne from a passing waiter and taking a small sip. "I didn't expect you to be here. The company made me come," he said with a bitter laugh. "I'm currently Evergreen Cautionary Tale, responsible for compliance training for new hires." I nodded. From Hayes, I knew Ethan hadn't been prosecuted, but he had been demoted for oversight in signing documents, his salary halved, and his career essentially ruined. "What about Chloe?" I asked, purely out of curiosity. Ethan's face contorted. "She ran off. She took the last $200,000 from my account and left a note." His voice choked, and he pulled a crumpled piece of paper from his wallet, handing it to me. It read, "Ethan, you deserved this. Thanks for your final generosity. It was much better than you in bed. Chloe IH." Handed the note back to him, offering no comment. This petty humiliation couldn't even give me satisfaction. It just felt pathetic. "I was completely blind," Ethan said, crumpling the note into a ball. "For her, I lost you, I lost my career, and now I have no savings left." Sunlight streamed through the glass curtain wall, casting a bright dividing line on the floor between us. He stood in the shadows, while I was bathed in the light. "Grace, He looked up, his eyes suspiciously watery. "If one day—" "There are no ifs," I gently interrupted him. "Ethan, we can't go back." He opened his mouth, but in the end, only nodded. A well-dressed middle-aged man approached, naturally taking a spot beside me. "Ms. Grace, your design philosophy is truly impressive. I'm Daniel from Apex. I wonder if there's an opportunity for us to discuss further." I smiled and shook his hand. From the corner of my eye, I saw Ethan quietly retreat, disappearing into the crowd. After the reception, Daniel insisted on driving me home. His car was a subtle black Mercedes, its interior exuding a faint leather scent. "Was that he asked cautiously. "My ex-husband," I answered succinctly. Daniel nodded, then cleverly changed the subject. "Our group has a new project next month that would suit your studio style perfectly. Would you be interested in discussing it?" Outside the car window, city lights streamed past. I thought of those nights filled with hatred half a year ago. Now, they seemed quite distant. "Of course, I'd be honored," I replied with a smile. The car stopped in front of my new apartment building. Daniel handed me his business card. "I look forward to working with you." I took the card, it had his handwritten personal number on it. "Thank you, good night." Stepping into the elevator, I leaned against the mirrored wall, feeling a strange sense of peace. Revenge was complete, but the real victory wasn't Ethan and Chloe's downfall, it was me finding myself again. My phone vibrated. It was a message from Sarah. "You won't believe what I just heard. Chloe went to Miami and latched onto a wealthy businessman, but his wife has gang connections and had her beaten so badly she's hospitalized." I replied, "I hope she recovers soon," then turned off my phone. This wasn't hypocritical forgiveness, but complete release. They no longer warranted any of my emotions, neither hatred nor pity. The next morning, I arrived at the studio. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, filling the entire space, and my employees were already busy. My assistant greeted me. "Grace, Mr. Daniel from Apex just called and wants to schedule a site visit with you this afternoon." "Okay, please arrange it," I nodded, walking into my office. On my desk were several design sketches, new inspirations that had struck me last night. I picked up a pen and began to refine the details. The soft scratching of the pen on paper sounded like the symphony of a new life. There was a gentle knock on the door, and my assistant poked her head in. "Grace, you have a package." It was an elegant gift box, containing a Mont Blanc pen, accompanied by a card. It read, "Looking forward to seeing more of your brilliant designs. Daniel." I picked up the pen, its body shimmered with a subtle luster in the sunlight. This was more than just a gift, it was a symbol of a new beginning. The site visit that afternoon went smoothly. Daniel was professional and witty, with unique insights into design. When we parted, he hesitated for a moment. "Ms. Grace, I wonder if you would be willing to have dinner, not just to discuss business." I looked at his sincere eyes and nodded. "I'd be delighted." Dinner was at a quiet Italian restaurant. We talked about design, travel, and our favorite books and movies. There was no mention of the past, only the present and the future. On the way home, Daniel stopped the car. "Grace, I know you've just been through a difficult time. I'm not in a rush, we can take things slowly." "Thank you," I said, truly meaning it. Back home, I stood on the balcony, looking out at the city's myriad lights. Half a year ago, I thought my life was ruined. Now, I realized it was just a necessary collapse, paving the way to rebuild a stronger self. In my phone's photo album, I scrolled past old pictures of Ethan and me. What I once thought was an unforgettable pain had now turned into a faint melancholy. I pressed the delete button without hesitation. The next day, on my way to work, I passed a newly opened coffee shop. Through the glass window, I saw a familiar figure, Ethan, wearing a cheap suit, serving coffee to customers. He saw me and quickly turned, disappearing into the back kitchen. I continued walking, my steps unbroken. Everyone has their own path to walk, and mine was leading towards a bright horizon. Back at the studio, new projects awaited me. Sunlight fell across the design blueprints spread on my desk, like infinite possibilities. Thank you for watching today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and share it with your friends. We look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments. Feel free to share your perspectives, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more exciting stories. See you next time.